Check out the ultimate guide for the ambitious young man, only at themailarchive.com. How did we go from this to this? According to a study done by Reuters about 17 years ago, they have figured out that apparently male testosterone levels has had a significant drop in the last 20 years by average, which meant that a 65-year-old man from the year 1987 actually had much higher levels of testosterone as compared to a 65-year-old man in the year 2002. Much more recent research done by Forbes in 2017 confirms the previous findings from 2002. They state that by 2004, the percentage gap of testosterone from men in the 1980s and men from 2004 had increased from 15% to 17%, which just in 2 years shows how much of an epidemic this is. But what actually caused these testosterone drops? Well, according to multiple researches uploaded in Google, a few notable causes are obesity, diabetes, alcohol, aging, and multiple other kidney or testicular related diseases. But here in the Mail Archive, we don't just look at Google and slap the information into your heads. We also base most of our points from the experiences of other men, and myself. Testosterone, as we all know, is responsible for our overall aggression as men, whether that be in sex drive or just in our natural pursuit of dominance. In terms of achieving large high-risk goals, testosterone aids in allowing us to take much more risks than usual, whereas lower levels of testosterone may actually prevent you from taking larger risks, which overall decreases your chances of achieving your ambition, if you do have one to begin with, considering a lower testosterone average in general. Given all those points, what actually makes modern men so weak? Google says diseases, alcohol, and obesity plays large factors, and although that might be true, as men, we know deep down that there are a lot more habits that modern men indulge themselves into that ultimately leads to a drop of testosterone in general. First off, social media. Now, if you observe yourself much more often, and the level of drive you feel after spending hours in social media, you probably will start to slowly realize that this isn't benefiting your natural masculine drive at all. Sitting there for hours, scrolling through pathetically, wasting time, and throwing away dopamine without any actual physical movement will no doubt lead to much lower levels of drive and motivation. You feel weaker as you use social media. Why? Because as you indulge in shit like this, you end up seeing what other people are up to much more often, and everything you see there are inflated views of their lives. You might see people post happy moments at a time where you're currently stressed out, working, and you think to yourself, why can't I be in that position? You then start to compare your pathetic life to what you think is their life, but in reality is just an inflated view of it. People in social media post happy pictures, so you'd end up thinking everyone else around you is happy, whereas you aren't, which makes you feel shit and you end up losing your drive for the day. You end up feeling much more demotivated. That's one reason for weakness. The next point is lack of physical movement. It's a no-brainer to consider this. As men, we like to move. We do much better in sports generally because we're competitive. We're much more physical than our female counterparts. We go to war to fight. We run, we carry heavy loads. Everything physical cultivates our drive as men. We feel powerful after that gym session. Blood pumping, muscles feel strong. We feel alive. In today's modern day though, physical activity is lacking. We would more often see young men spend hours playing video games rather than actually investing their time into sports. Whereas in the past, before video games were a thing, physical games were the number one pastime for most young men. In today's age though, that isn't the case, and we're slowly starting to see its effects. Porn and masturbation. These two come together. You'd be lying to yourself if you said you jacked off but never looked at porn. We all know as men, after a session, it's a whole hour of feeling guilty. That's not just guilt, that's drive being thrown away. You feel like shit after rubbing one out because your body takes a lot of energy to produce sperm, and you do 2 rounds in a span of 5 hours. Then you ask yourself why you don't feel motivated. Instead of channeling that sexual drive into something great, you end up throwing it away to a bunch of pixels on a fucking screen. This is something to think about. Google says these things are normal, but is it really? Because you know for a fact deep down, it doesn't feel normal. You feel like absolute shit after you do it, so do not lie to yourself and make that excuse of, oh, but Google says it's normal. Cause it isn't, and you know it. Next, lack of sleep. The average man requires at least 7 hours of sleep. But in today's modern day, where work has become much more stressful, gaming sessions take much longer, and school has much more workload, it's very hard to hit this 7 hours of sleep minimum. But it's important to understand that you have a level of control over this. The earlier you wake up, the more time you have in your day to accomplish tasks earlier. That way, when the clock hits 9 p.m., you're already getting ready for bed. Because proper sleep allows for a much better feeling the next day, which is subproduct, allows you to have a much higher level of drive and motivation because you feel good. This also helps in increasing and maintaining testosterone. Lastly, the food. Modern day food is the definition of shit. Fucking fast food chains with meat processed to the bones. Lots and lots of MSG, and other preservatives that fuck with testosterone leave you flabby and feeling like shit about yourselves, which in turn decreases the feeling of drive and motivation. Let's be honest here. When you look like shit, you feel like shit, and you don't feel like showing yourself up in front of anyone. We don't need science for this. Sometimes our feelings can tell us a lot about what's going on inside of us as men. Given all those major points, it's important to sit back, think, and be very honest with yourself. They all make sense. I'm a man making this video, and I know. I assume you're a man looking to improve yourself as well as you watch this, learning new knowledge that you can't find anywhere else. This is what we do at the Male Archive, guiding ambitious men like yourself to unleash your untapped potential. Many information out there related to males are either being sugar-coated or just left hanging, which is why many modern men are left unguided. Do not be like those slobs. You're here doing your research, learning about how to become better. You're already one step closer to becoming the man you wish to become. Check out the ultimate guide for the ambitious young man, only at themalearchive.com.